It's really important to eat enough protein to help prevent ruining your metabolism while you lose weight. But some protein-rich foods are a lot better at doing this than others. So today I'm ranking the 30 best high-protein foods from both animal and plant-based sources. Let's dive into it. My name's Autumn. I'm a certified clinical nutritionist with my master's in nutrition and human performance, and today's video is sponsored by Thrive Market. More on them in a bit. Okay, so I'm ranking these proteins using the tier system, and they're going to be ranked on 3 different criteria. The first is how much protein is actually in it. Really the protein density of it, because some protein-rich foods actually have a pretty low amount of protein compared to how much you have to eat. The second is the protein quality. This is the DIAS score. So protein is great, but we also need to actually absorb it and use it properly. And if we can't absorb it very well, then we're not really getting the benefits of it. And this is measured by the DIAS score. And then the third is nutrient density, because yes, protein is very, very important, but also we need to make sure that it's nutrient dense, because that's going to make sure that we're actually living our healthiest possible lives while we're also achieving a weight loss goal. Okay, so I'm also breaking it up into 2 categories. I'm first going to go with the animal-based proteins, and then we'll go into the plant-based proteins. Okay, so first let's start with chicken. Chicken is high DIAS, so it's going to be absorbed very well. It's also very high in protein, and that's because chicken is very lean, so it has a lot of protein compared to the fat content. The one little hiccup with chicken is that it tends to have lower nutrient density compared to other protein sources. Like, it's not really a great source of iron, for example. So because of that, I'm going to put this in the great, but not, it's like borderline good and great. I'll put it there. Okay, next up, beef. So beef from all different cuts is going to be high DIAS. The protein content is going to vary based on the cut of protein that you're having. So like a chuck roast tends to have a lot more fat compared to the protein content versus something like ground beef or certain steaks is going to be more lean. But just across the board, it is still really high in protein, and it's been rated one of the most nutrient-rich foods. So because of that, I'm actually going to put beef all the way up in this excellent category. Okay, next up we have bison, and bison is pretty much across the board the exact same as beef. So I'll just go ahead and stick that right up here with excellent. So for the fourth one, we have turkey, and turkey is one that a lot of people love to have because it is a lean protein, and there are a lot of great health benefits to it. It does have a decent amount of choline, but it is pretty low in zinc and iron, but it still is high DIAS. It's also going to be a high protein source. So because of all of those things, I'm still going to put it like at the exact same level as chicken. In fact, maybe I'll put it just slightly below because chicken does have a little bit better of nutrient profile than turkey. Okay, next up we have eggs. Eggs are very, very high DIAS. They are also very satiating. So if you're on a weight loss goal, it's like one of the best things that you could be eating to help keep you full and satisfied and prevent cravings. It's essentially a multivitamin with the level of nutrients it has. It's so rich in vitamin K2. It has vitamin A. It's very rich in choline, which is so important for brain and liver health, especially when pregnant. But the one little like hiccup with it, at least when we're looking at it from a weight loss perspective and getting enough protein, is that it's fairly low in protein compared to other protein sources. Each egg has anywhere between like 5 to 7 grams of protein. So if you're trying to get like 30 grams of complete protein per meal, that's like 5 or 6 eggs that you need to eat in one sitting. And from my experience, most people don't want to eat that much. So I'm going to move the eggs just below the excellent category. I'm going to put it on the borderline of like excellent and great because it is like such a multivitamin, really important. But in terms of protein, it's just like medium level. Okay, now before we move on, I want to give a huge thank you to today's sponsor, Thrive Market. Thrive Market is a really awesome online membership-based grocery store, and they're on a mission to make healthy living as easy and accessible and affordable as possible. Plus, they're delivered directly to your door, and especially for myself as a busy mom, this just makes my life so much easier. And you can save on every order on high-quality brands like Primal Kitchens and Base Culture on their website and on their app. And if you happen to find the price lower someplace else, Thrive Market will match the price, always guaranteeing you the lowest price. Plus, orders over $49 have free shipping. One of my favorite things about Thrive Market has always been their filters function, which helps you to discover different brands that fit your dietary preferences or needs. So if you're plant-based or keto or gluten-free or opting for grass-fed, then you can mark these off to make sure that you're always choosing what fits your needs. In fact, I was actually using this function when I came across for the first time Base Culture, which is my favorite paleo bread, and it's so good. It makes the absolute best French toast. And with Thrive Market, you have access to foods that you just might not be able to find at your local grocery store, all while saving money in the process. In fact, you can find so many high protein, high quality foods on Thrive Market to help making achieving your goals so much easier. And right now, you can join Thrive Market today today to get 30% off your first order plus a free gift valued up to $60. So make sure you head over to thrivemarket.com/autumnbates for 30% off your first order. I'll also have it linked down description below so you don't miss out. Okay, and then we have maybe like an unconventional source of protein, but it's oysters. Now, oysters are also high diaz, so they're really easily absorbed, which really across the board here, all animal sources of protein except for collagen are going to be high diaz. So I'm just not going to repeat that for the rest of these in the animal-based category. And oysters are also very nutrient dense. It's one of the best sources of vitamin B12. So if you have issues getting vitamin B12, sneak a few oysters in your diet. You're good. It's also very low fat, but it's generally pretty low protein for the amount that you have to eat. So it only has about 11 grams of protein per 4 ounces. In fact, it's actually always so low that I have to double check it each time because I'm like, how is that possible? So it is not a great source of protein, but it is very nutrient dense. I'm going to put it on the level of okay, only because it is so low in protein that I'm not really sure I would fully considered a protein source for most people. Next up, we have shrimp, which shrimp is one of those really sneaky sources of protein that's actually very, very nutrient dense. In fact, it was mentioned in that study as one of the top 8 foods that's most nutrient dense. So if you love shrimp, great news because it's also a very great source of protein. I'm going to, in fact, put it up here with beef and bison. Okay, next up we have pork. So similar to beef, depending on the cut you're using, the fat content and therefore the protein content will vary a lot. Like if you're having pork chops versus pork belly, for example, it's gonna be drastically different for how much protein you're actually getting. So assuming that you're not just eating bacon and you're eating like the loin or the chops, then it is going to be a high protein source. It's also rich in choline and zinc, but it is a little low in vitamin A and iron. And because of the variable fat content, I'm going to put it again in that like great and excellent borderline right there. Maybe I'll put, yeah, I'll leave it right there. Okay, next up we have lamb, and lamb is also very high diaz, very great source of protein, and so nutrient dense. Depending on where you're at, it might be common or less common to be consuming more lamb. I've been trying to eat a lot more lamb because of the nutrient density of it. Now, the one slight issue is that it is very, very high in fat, which isn't necessarily problematic that it's high in fat, but this displaces a lot of the protein. And if you're purely looking to increase your protein, then it can be a little bit tricky with lamb. Just to put this into perspective, so 4 ounces of lamb only has about 25 grams of protein and 22 grams of fat versus like, let's say ground beef has for 4 ounces about 30 grams of protein and 16 grams of fat. So even though lamb is so nutrient dense because it has a lot more fat, I'm also going to put it in that like borderline great and excellent category. Okay, and then venison, it's actually high in protein and high in a lot of important nutrients as well. So I'm going to put that up in that like excellent category. I'm just gonna have him right there in between those two. Okay, and then fatty fish, so things like salmon, anchovies, and sardines, those are all really great sources of protein and really important sources of omega-3 fatty acids, which can be difficult to get in the diet if you aren't consuming fatty fish. So I'm gonna put that right up there in that excellent category. Now, whitefish is also a high quality source of protein. It is lower in fat, so it tends to be a little bit higher in protein than some of the fattier fish. And it also does have pretty decent nutrient value, although it is going to be low in some important nutrients like zinc and iron and vitamin A. I'm gonna put it in like the great category because it does have some great nutrients. It is high in protein, but it's also a little bit low in some important nutrients. Now, I'm going to combine cottage cheese and Greek yogurt into one category because they have a lot of the same benefits. They are very nutrient dense, they're very high in calcium, they're very, very high in protein, and they're also generally great options if you are lactose intolerant. So I'm going to put cottage cheese / Greek yogurt up in this excellent category. I'm gonna have to start smushing these together to fit everything. Now, regular yogurt, on the other hand, is a great source of protein, although it is very low protein. It has a lot of the same benefits as Greek yogurt and cottage cheese, but it's just a lot lower. So you only get about 5 to 7 grams per cup versus with like Greek yogurt, you get about 20 to 25 grams. So for regular yogurt, I'm actually going to put it all the way down in this like okay category. Okay, so whey protein, which is a dairy-based protein like my zero sugar pasture-raised whey protein powder, is an amazing source of protein. It is very, very high in protein and it's very digestible, but it's not going to have the nutrients that the whole food ingredients will have, which is why I always recommend having the protein powder in recipes. So adding it in things like smoothies or protein waffles to make sure that you're rounding out the nutrient profile, but it is a great way to really add in extra protein when you're lacking. So whey protein, I'm going to put it in in that great category because it is such a great high quality source of protein, but you need to eat it with other foods to round it out with the nutrients. An egg white protein can also be kind of in that same category. Okay, then we go into the plant-based foods. Now, all of these are generally going to have a lower DIAS score. The only one that is pretty good is potato protein, but it's really hard to find that. Most people aren't using it, so we'll just disregard it. All of them are going to have either a moderate to low DIAS score. So that already knocks it out of that excellent protein category. So first we'll start with a really popular one, which is pea protein powder. Depending on the source that you're looking at, it has a really mixed DIAS score. So it can either be a really, really low DIAS score or that can be like moderately okay. So it is going to be high protein. It's inherently nutrient poor. And I've also seen a lot of people have digestive issues with it. Not necessarily everybody, but a lot of my clients don't digest it very well. So because of that, I'm going to put pea protein powder down in that I'll put it in the okay category. Next up, we have soy protein, which is going to have a higher DIAS score, not as high as some of the others, not as high as some of the animal-based proteins, but it is going to have a moderately high one for plant-based protein. Although again, because it is a powder, it is nutrient poor and it can have some issues with digestion. So because of all that, I'm going to put the soy-based protein just below the whey. Okay, and then we have peanuts. Peanuts in all its form, like peanut butter or whole peanuts. This is one that people often think of as like really high in protein, but its DIAS score, which is that measurement of protein quality, is so low it can't even really be measured as a protein. And you only get 7 grams of protein for about 190 calories worth of peanuts, which to put that into perspective, you get 27 grams of protein for the same amount of calories with beef. Peanuts are also going to be low in important nutrients like zinc and iron and vitamin A. So for all of those reasons, I'm putting peanuts in the poor category. For similar reasons, almonds are also going to that category. I'm going to throw those in there too. Now, seeds are another category that tend to be used to help bump up protein, and they're generally low DIAS, although there are some that can sneak up a bit. Hemp seeds are one that, again, depending on the source, is either going to be low or moderate DIAS score. Hemp seeds are also a little bit higher in protein too, and you can get some great nutrient value from them, especially like pumpkin seeds will have magnesium, or hemp seeds will have the plant-based form of omega-3. So for seeds, I'm going to put it in the okay category because there are some that can be okay. Or actually, I'm going to put it like borderline. Yeah. I'll do it like borderline. Okay, next up we have beans, and depending on the beans, it's going to be like borderline higher DIAS, although some are pretty low DIAS. So we'll give it the benefit of the doubt and say it's like a little bit higher DIAS score. But beans in general tend to be pretty low protein compared to the starch content. For example, to get about 28 grams of protein from black beans, you'll also be getting about 54 grams of net carbs, which totals to about 482 calories. So it's not the best bang for your nutritional buck. So I'm also, again, going to put it in that okay/poor category. Okay, so seitan, which I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, but is another plant-based alternative for protein. It's made out of wheat. It does have a lower DIAS score because it's incomplete. It's also low fat and it's also very nutrient poor. I would so much rather somebody have a fermented soy product like tempeh, which we'll get into in just a second, than seitan. So I'm again going to put it on that borderline because technically you can get some protein from it. Okay, and then Ezekiel bread is next, which Ezekiel bread is a little different than other breads. It does have a mixture of different protein sources to help make it more complete. It's also fermented and sprouted, which helps to actually make those nutrients more absorbable. The DIAS score is unknown, so we can't really determine that, but 2 slices of Ezekiel bread is going to have about 10 grams of protein with 24 net carbs. So you don't get a ton of protein, you do get some, and it's a little bit more complete, and it's a little bit more nutrient dense. So specifically when it comes to Ezekiel bread, I am going to put it a little bit higher, just above the poor category, more in like the okay category, because it's still pretty low in protein for the carb content, but it does seem to be more complete, although DIAS score unknown. In fact, I'm going to actually bump up the yogurt now that I'm looking at this to more of like the okay/good, because it is a much higher quality source of protein than some of these others. Next up, we have buckwheat, which buckwheat actually is a complete protein and it's borderline higher DIAS, but it is still pretty low protein compared to the starch content. 1 cup cooked buckwheat has about 29 grams of net carbs and only 6 grams of protein. Now, good news though is that using about that 1 cup amount does still keep it to medium glycemic load. So similar to the Ezekiel bread, I'm going to put it in that okay category. Okay, quinoa is one that's often cited as a great way to bump up your protein, but it is very low DIAS from the sources that I'm finding. It's also low protein compared to the starch content. It only has about 8 grams of protein with 34 grams of net carbs per 1 cup cooked quinoa, and it's deemed near nearly complete, so it's not really complete because there are some limiting amino acids. So for all of those reasons, I'm putting quinoa in that poor category. Okay, so now we have probably the best plant-based source of protein, which is the category of soy. We have fermented soy with tempeh, we have non-fermented with tofu, and then we also have edamame. Now, to be fair, each of these is probably going to rank a little bit better than the other. Like for example, tempeh, I actually would put in that good, borderline excellent section, at least for plant-based options, because it is fermented, so it's going to release those nutrients a little bit better. It's also going to be easier to digest, and it's higher in protein compared to those other plant-based sources. But tofu, you would need about 9 ounces of it in order to get 30 grams, which just is an unrealistic amount to eat. Edamame is that whole food source of soy, and it is a higher quality protein, although again, you would need to eat quite a bit. And because it isn't fermented, there could be some nutrient absorption that's getting blocked. But 1 cup of edamame will give you about 12 grams of complete protein with only 3 grams of net carbs. For this category, I would highlight tempeh. It's going to be the best option, and for that reason, I'm going to put it up here in that, let's put it in the borderline good and great. And edamame and tofu can fall into that category too. You'll just need to eat more of it. They also tend to be a little bit more nutrient poor, so again, that's why I'm putting it in that good/great category. Okay, then we have yellow split peas, which actually has a borderline higher DIAS score, and it's moderately high in protein compared to the starch content, at least from a plant-based perspective. You get 16 grams of protein for every 20 grams of net carbs, and that's in 1 cup of the cooked yellow split peas. It's also going to be higher in folate, have some zinc, and a little bit of iron, although it's not going to be the most bioavailable iron. So for those reasons, I'm actually going to put it on par. I'm going to put it in the good category. So you do get a pretty decent amount, and the DIAS score is pretty good, and you do get some nutrient value. Okay, and then lastly, we have chickpeas. Now, chickpeas are another one of those like borderline DIAS score proteins, although it is technically incomplete. So you will need to pair it with like hemp seeds or other seeds in order to technically complete it. And you get about 15 grams of protein for 33 grams of net carbohydrates when you have 1 cup of cooked chickpeas. It's also higher in fiber, it's higher in folate, and it does have some iron and zinc. Again, probably not as bioavailable as some of the animal-based sources, but at least it does have it. So for those reasons, I'm still going to put it in that okay category. Now, a lot of things I mentioned in today's video can actually be found on Thrive Market and delivered directly to your door. So if you want to get 30% off your first order plus a free gift valued up to $60, make sure you head over to thrivemarket.com/autumnbates, or you can click on the link in the description box down below so you don't miss out on that discount. All right, guys, now if you're trying to get more protein, you can check out how I get 100 grams of protein per day with this video next. Also, if you're new to my channel and you love this science-backed information, make sure you subscribe right here. Come out new videos every Tuesday and Thursday. All right, guys, thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in my next video.